Good morning and welcome to Lovin Daily. I'm Julian Bonnici. Today with us we have JP Atsopardi. Hi JP, how are you?
Hi, Julian. I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm very well, very well. So just to give you a little bit of a rundown of today's stories, we're opening with quite a big story. Malta's entire cabinet is under investigation for misusing public funds. Our second story deals with a cigarette-free summer, with the council sort of making a proposal to ban smoking on beaches. The third one is care homes finally opening their doors on 18 June. The fourth story is quite a shocking story about a 17-year-old Maltese swimmer speaking out against sexual harassment. And our fifth and final story is One Production's missing accounts finally being addressed, according to Malta's Prime Minister. To kick off our story, it's quite a major story revealed by Lovin Malta. Malta's entire cabinet of ministers is officially under criminal investigation into the misuse of public funds and on social media. So the magisterial inquiry will be led by Magistrate Doreen Clark, while police investigations are being conducted by Inspector Renny Stevala from the Economic Crimes Unit. So for those of you who don't know, this sort of all emerged after Lovin Malta filed a report with the Standards Commissioner, George Hisler, who found widespread misuse of public resources by ministers and parliamentary secretaries. Essentially, ministers were using public funds and resources to boost their own Facebook pages instead of setting up official ministry pages. Essentially, getting all the views, getting all the engagement for themselves with the use of taxpayer money. Estimates show that at least 1.2 million were spent by ministries on social media over a 55-month period, despite none of them, well, most of them, not having any official Facebook pages. And this sort of case could be huge. According to Malta's criminal code, any public officer or servant who for his own private gain sort of misappropriates funds or money entrusted to him by the virtue of his office shall on conviction be liable to imprison between 2 or 6 years and actually could face perpetual general interdiction. For those of you who don't know, interdiction means one actually loses their right to hold public office and also lose the right to vote. This could be huge for the cabinet. Back in May, Prime Minister Robert Abela declared this case closed, but it seems anything but at this moment. He also downplayed the magisterial inquiry yesterday, sort of saying it's another one brought by the opposition. But truth be told, it isn't brought by the opposition. It was actually from the Standards Commissioner who told the National Audit Office to report on it. And now it's led to a fully fledged police investigation. There's serious issues here. I don't know what you think about it, JP.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it could potentially have huge political ramifications for the whole cabinet. Everyone's under investigation. As a taxpayer, I feel like this is the right move. I'm glad to see this move in this direction, that it's being criminally investigated. But the issue still persists. We're even seeing ministers now using public funds to promote their own Facebook pages, even when they've been clearly made aware of the situation. So I'm glad it's moving in this direction. I'm glad there's a criminal investigation into it, and I can't wait to see what the outcome is. Moving on to the next story, an interesting proposal by a Meleha local councillor, Gabriel McAuliffe, to perhaps make one Maltese beach cigarette-free. So McAuliffe is currently in talks with fellow council members to introduce Malta's first cigarette beach, which Adira Bay is currently being proposed for this kind of experiment, social experiment, so to speak. And personally, as a non-smoker, I'm totally for this initiative. I can see the huge benefits for having a cigarette-free beach in Malta. First and foremost is its aesthetic value. It's way nicer to have a beach that's not littered with cigarette butts. I'm sure we can all agree on that. It will work great for our tourism industry as well, to kind of promote these clean, healthy beaches. And it's also a great incentive kind of for public health and the natural environment. Malta's beaches are a nesting ground for loggerhead turtles. So, to kind of have that feeling that knowing that the beaches are being taken care of and there are these rules to keep cigarettes off our beaches, or these cigarette butts, is for me quite a positive step. I know, Julian, you're a smoker, so I don't know if you have any different opinions to me on the matter. What do you think?
Well, so to be honest, as you said, I'm a smoker, so I'm a bit apprehensive about this proposal. You know, I'll have to be honest, I don't smoke a cigarette, but you do make a very good point. You know, at the end of the day, these beaches, because of smokers, are being littered by cigarette butts. You know, we also have to take our own responsibility and just bloody pick them up. You know, I do it. You know, it's really not that hard. So hopefully that could sort of be the change, where maybe they enforce picking up cigarette butts a little bit more. I'm being a bit selfish here, I'll admit it. I'm looking after my own interests, but what can you do? At least I'm being honest. To move on to our next story, care homes. So actually this is going to be a good news for quite a lot of people. You know, care homes will open their doors to relatives on 18 June. So basically visits for residents of care homes can resume from 18 June, according to the Parliamentary Secretary of Active Aging. From this point, you know, relatives can go without the use of perspex or glass structures, you know, and can interact on a more close basis with their loved ones. You know, the news doesn't stop there. On 1st July, older persons in these homes can leave the premises for the first time since the pandemic hit Malta. Obviously, the people in these homes have been under really strict conditions since the pandemic started, and rightly so. You know, we've seen abroad that care homes have been some of the worst hit by the virus. So the government sort of was very proactive in it, and I'm glad that maybe the visits are starting to open again. You know, I haven't seen my grandmother personally in quite a while, and I don't know, I'm looking forward to seeing her again. Just also a reminder, currently these rules do not apply to St. Vincent de Paul. It applies to any other state, church, or private home for the elderly. I don't know what you think about it, Jay.
It's great news for sure. I mean, I don't doubt it at all. But it's maybe not so great news for other people who have vulnerable loved ones in these areas. For example, there's no clarification or information as to whether people will now be able to visit their vulnerable ones in hospital, which is also another issue that needs to be addressed and has been spoken about. You know, Lovin Malta a few days ago ran a story about a family that hasn't seen their dad in 3 months because he's bedridden in Malta Day. He can't even speak over the phone. So they have had no communication with him over 3 months because of the COVID-19 pandemic, and rightfully so. But now that we're opening care homes, maybe the question needs to be as well, when are we going to open the hospital for visits? We also have to take into consideration the fact that the virus is still here, you know. Yesterday, we had 3 new cases of COVID-19 with 0 recoveries. A couple of months ago, if we had those figures, we'd be making a bit more of a deal about it, you know. We'd be take it a bit more seriously. But today, we're opening care homes, we're opening airports, all our non-essential retail stores are open. And I'm not saying it's not the right move, but we have to also take into consideration that our vulnerable people are still vulnerable. So the virus can still affect them as much as it would have 2 months ago. It hasn't gone away. So that definitely has to be taken into consideration, and it's interesting to see how this all pans out. Moving on to our perhaps most shocking story of today, a 17-year-old Maltese swimmer has spoken out against sexual harassment after she was featured on a YouTube video where Maltese girls were rated based on their looks from a scale of 1 to 10. Now, the issue isn't so much the video itself. It's quite trivial, and you know, it's a child video, so to speak, you know, teenage stuff. But after the video went live, Maya Tsapati decided to voice her opinion on her personal Instagram page about sexual harassment and objectification of women. And in doing so, she received a lot of backlash from online community, people, you know, spewing hate, you know, messaging her, and she even received death threats in some cases for voicing opinion against sexual harassment. So it once again brings the issue back into, you know, the public eye, and it's quite shocking to hear this still happening in 2020. Speaking to her myself personally, it was quite shocking to hear her own experience with sexual harassment ever since coming back to Malta about 2 months ago. Within the span of these 2 months, you know, there have been at least 3 kind of major cases of sexual harassment that she's experienced. The first being when she was walking home one day and a car kind of came onto the pavement and forced her up against the wall because the guy just wanted to honk and speak at her. The second case was, perhaps the most shocking, was when she was out of Portugal one night and a guy groped her, and rightfully so, she pushed him away, and his reaction was to just punch her. And the third case was in a doctor's waiting room, actually, where a random stranger was just filming her, you know. So it's shocking personally to see that these incidents are still happening in 2020. I don't know what your take on it, all of it is, Julian. I mean, it's quite shocking.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail right on the head. You know, it's such a shocking story, you know, to hear such aggressive acts of sexual harassment taking place in Malta and in effect against a young woman. You know, it's really horrible. It's really incorrect. And, you know, people, I mean, you know, we need to grow up and stop doing these things. You know, I don't know what the solution is. Hopefully the government can actually introduce a proper campaign, you know, and sort of make it clear that this kind of sexual harassment can't be tolerated anymore, you know, whether you're going to prosecute criminally or I don't know, to sort of stamp it out completely is up to the lawmakers, but something needs to be done. I mean, you hear stories like this, it's evidence, and I'm sure her experience is not unique, and there are many other women out there who have experienced probably even just as shocking, if not more shocking, incidents of sexual harassment. To move on to our last and final story, back to the political a bit. So One Production's missing accounts will finally be addressed, according to Malta's Prime Minister. So essentially, both the Nationalist Party's Media Link and the Labour Party's One Production have failed to submit an official report of their end-of-year accounts to the Malta Business Registry for a number of years. For the PN, this dates way back to 2004. And the Labour Party last filed accounts in 2010. So for those of you who don't know, sort of companies are obliged to keep proper accounting records, deliver an annual copy of their accounts to the business registry every single year. The maximum penalties for failing to submit the account are €2,300 annually and €46 per day. So the PN sort of had told us that Media Link is currently carrying out an exercise to bring its financial statements up to date. However, the Labour Party failed to reply. So I went to the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister sort of vowed to address the issue within the next few months. He said for the first 5 months of the year, he's been busy with COVID-19, and now he promises to address this issue. Hopefully it will do so. You know, financial transparency is key, especially in Malta's political parties, and especially with the history we've had with the Panama Papers and whatnot. Hopefully it can be addressed, and who knows, I hope that this story moves positive moving forward. Otherwise, that's all we have for today. Have a good day, and have a day full of love.